Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Heroes Show. You got Corey and Nick with you as always. And in today's episode, we're going to be chatting about episode 3 of Star Wars The Bad Batch, which was entitled Replacements. We are going to be talking spoilers all the way through episode 3 of this show. So if you have not seen those, please head over to Disney Plus first and check them out. Then come back here and chat with us. Nick, how you doing today, bud?
Good. Got a clean face. Well,
yeah, I know. I almost didn't recognize you.
Shadowy already, but I mean, hey, that's the life I live, right?
We started the Zoom call, and I was like, "Did I send the link to the wrong person? What the hell's going on here?"
Yeah, a different clone showed up.
Oh wow! Well played. Good. Nice segue into that. So in today's episode, the replacements episode of Bad Batch, we had a pretty standard A plot, B plot type episode. We had the Bad Batch crashed on a moon and had to deal with a monster that was trying to eat their batteries. And then over on the other side of the episode, we had Crosshair and his new friends, which could be the first stormtroopers or death troopers, maybe. Yeah. Doing some training and going on their first mission. So, Nick, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What you think about this episode?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Interesting to see the stories kind of advance between the Bad Batch and Crosshair, really. And it's funny when they crash landed on this planet, I got this little bit of a Empire Strikes Back vibe.
100%.
The I'm like,
thing
yes,
when they're on the asteroid.
Yeah. Like I'm like, this is Dave Filoni being a fanboy, and I am all about it. Yeah. And again, this is just what shows how being a fan about Star Wars can just have an impact on future stories. So I liked this episode for that reason. And when they send the new replacements in, I'm like, these might be the new stormtroopers, because and it's kind of funny because Crosshair is all about like a good soldier follows orders, and it didn't hesitate to not only kill one of the new replacements, but then tell the other 3 replacements, hey, you guys need to kill the civilians. And they're like, but this is wrong. And it's like, no, it's not about right or wrong for Crosshair. It's about following orders. And that's just for the brainwashed clones, period. But one thing that I kept wondering about throughout the episode was what was going on with Wrecker. He kept he's like, my head. I'm like, oh, come on, I don't want to lose Wrecker to the chip,
Order 66.
Yeah, like
so. When we first watched it, we thought like, okay, he hit his head. Maybe it's like a light concussion or something. And then later on, it was brought to my attention that where he hit his head was right where the inhibitor chip is.
Right.
And I felt like a total moron for not catching it, to be honest with you. But then, like, after that, I was like, oh, son of a bitch. Like, if we lose Wrecker, he's like the childish, whimsical clone in the Bad Batch. Right. And if he slowly starts turning into the one that, like, starts beating the hell out of people and doing the Empire's orders, that would be such a bummer. My girlfriend did bring up a funny point, though. She was like, what if the reason that the stormtroopers have horrible aim is because Wrecker trained them, because he doesn't really shoot a blaster that often and he's more hand-to-hand combat?
Certainly not Crosshair, that's for sure.
Right, exactly, because if Crosshair was training them, they'd all be like dead shots. So
it'd be a much scarier Empire, because they would have like pinpoint accuracy, or much better accuracy, because they would hit everything and they would have killed a lot more rebellion or like rebels. So
I feel like the original trilogy wouldn't have played out the same if the stormtroopers actually had good aim. But so I don't know, that's interesting if it's something as simple as where the inhibitor chip can just get like knocked back into place with like blunt force or something, or
because I think from all the episodes, and you kind of figure he's had some tumbles, I mean, he was even shot by Crosshair,
right, twice. He got shot in that one episode in almost the exact same spot.
Yeah, and he was fine. So he's endured more, and it didn't sort of trigger anything up until now. It's just that right spot that just seems to do the trick to the point where it's like, I don't want to lose him, because the entire time I'm thinking at some point Crosshair is probably gonna die if he can't be saved, and at that point, who else is gonna go with him?
Yeah, I don't think Crosshair is long for this world. I think either
No.
he'll get killed in battle, or he'll come to his senses and join back with the Bad Batch, and then the Empire will kill him.
Right. Like he's gonna,
seems inevitable.
Right. Like he's gonna, I don't want to say snap out of it per se, but he's gonna realize what was going on, and then it's kind of like the whole go down with the ship thing. Like, you guys go ahead, I'm gonna stay behind, and then just kind of dies in the process. While, who knows, like maybe letting Omega escape or something like that. So
right. So let's talk about Omega for a few minutes here, because she gets to actually like go on a mission in this episode, and it's just her and Hunter,
part of the ship, part of the crew.
Right. So and the batch is all about it, because they're like, yeah, you know what? She's here. She needs to carry her freaking weight, and they're okay with it. Hunter gets knocked out, and his little Ridley Scott alien mask gets knocked off, and he's passed out. So Omega carries out the rest of the mission. And I thought that was great, because I think back to other Star Wars animated series, so Clone Wars and Rebels. Their main protagonists were Ahsoka and Ezra.
Yep.
When they first started out, one of the biggest complaints that people had about Ahsoka was that she was like a whiny little kid. And then they kind of did the same thing with Ezra. He was a little slightly more capable whiny little kid, but he was still a whiny little kid, and he kind of had some people branded both of them as annoying. Omega seems like this cool, calm, composed, almost like an adult in a kid's body, where she's like, well, yeah, the mission had to get taken care of, so I just did it. And it's nice. It's refreshing.
There's a little bit of episode 1, Phantom Menace, Anakin Skywalker and the ship, and flying into space and destroying the Trade Federation, whatever with energy shield, and the whole thing goes down, right? So it's like you can't always knock a kid to get a job done in Star Wars. So
and she does it in a very smart and intelligent way. Obviously this moon dragon that they're fighting would tear them all to pieces, but she realizes that he's just hungry, so she throws the flashlight to him, and he's eating on the energy, and she's able to get the part for the ship that they need back, which will get them off that moon and back to safety, which is pretty cool. But they built her a room, which I thought was pretty cool. She's got a little cot on the ship, which she's part of the crew now, man. Like, we're 3 episodes in, and she's 100% part of that family, which I think is great too.
Yeah, she's already replaced Crosshair. But it's kind of like you said, like Wrecker being this big, Uncle Wrecker, right? He it's like he built a little fort in the ship. For Omega.
He's got a little heart.
It does. Yeah. So that's where I'm thinking, like, it would be sad to see him, turn, I guess.
But that's a Dave Filoni move if there ever was one.
Oh, absolutely.
Stab you in the heart and then twist the knife a little bit.
Feel connected, get involved with Wrecker and how he treats Omega, and maybe like the last couple episodes, it's gonna just twist the knife. Oh no, why'd you do that, Dave? Because it's good storytelling, that's why.
It's true. You can't always do what the fans want. You got to do what's gonna put them through something to make the peaks and valleys mean something. Which
bring that emotion out.
Yeah, for sure. It's a cartoon, but I mean, that doesn't mean that it has to be void of emotion and storytelling, which I think they've obviously embrace that, because their animated series have been very emotional. If you watch,
very on point.
Anything from Rebels or Clone Wars, there's some pretty deep stuff in there. But so I think another thing I loved about this episode, really the whole show so far, is it hasn't felt like a Saturday morning like villain of the week type thing.
Right.
This has actually felt like one large continuous story so far.
Yep.
Which is another deviation from Clone Wars and Rebels. At Clone Wars, they would do like a 2-episode arc or a 3-episode arc, and then kind of reset the cards or change the entire list of characters. Right? You'd go through like an Anakin arc, then an Obi-Wan arc, then a Mace Windu arc, and so on and so forth. This has been all about the Bad Batch and Omega, and all about the Empire the entire way through, which I think is pretty cool.
No filler in my book between these 3 episodes, you know, and I don't think there's room for filler, and I don't think that's the objective here. You know, I think every episode is going to have some sort of storytelling aspect that will continue to push the story further, because there's, you know, again, there's still a lot to fill in, right? Like everyone thinks, oh yeah, we know Clone Wars happens between, you know, these episodes and via movies, and we know this happens and that's that. And it's like, is it though? Because, you know, when you've got, again, the prodigy of George Lucas telling this story, you know that there's a lot that can be told and a lot that can actually be explained to further the story even more, especially when we're talking about Saw Gerrera, right? Like, he's a character that exists in the movies, so he's not just sort of like made up in the show and then gets transitioned. We haven't seen everything yet, so at that point there has to be actual story vices in every episode for these 16 episodes. So, you know, I think for the remaining 13, we're still going to have some good explanations for everything that will happen. So it's exciting for that aspect, you know. And I know a lot of people aren't really into the show, or I think in some cases are really sleeping on this for certain things,
whatever
you know,
reason,
right? You know, it's like, I'm not big into animated shows. That's fine. You know, it might not be your cup of tea, but I mean, again, think about what we talked about in the first episode with the animation alone was just outstanding.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
so
leaps
good.
and bounds ahead of its time, you know, and from where we actually grew up watching Saturday morning cartoons.
I know, right?
You know, X-Men, you know, TMNT, you know, like, I mean, come on, man, Batman, like, it's just it's crazy to see where it's come or it's gone. So
there's one shot in this episode, I think it's when Crosshair and his guys land on Onderon, and there's a moon and a bunch of palm trees, and the palm trees are just lit by the moon.
It's dark, dude. Yeah, those night
Unreal.
shots are
unbelievable. So
outstanding. Yeah.
So, speaking on Saw Gerrera, just the fact that you mentioned that he's in the movies and everything, he started in the Clone Wars.
Yep.
And he was a cartoon character first.
Yep.
Then he went into the movie, and then he was back in the cartoons, and then he's in the Fallen Order video game, and now he's back in the cartoons again. Like, what a great example of crossing the mediums and making it work.
To be in
cool.
everything.
Like, if you just saw him in Rogue One, it would be like, all right, who's this weird guy with a breathing apparatus? But like, when you see his arc in Clone Wars, where he's fighting and his sister dies and he turns into an extremist because of that and all that stuff, like, it's cool.
Yeah, and it really begs the question: are we going to see a couple other movie characters? You know,
I think
like,
we will.
Are we going to see Urso's father?
Galen
Urso. Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
What about Fennec?
Well, Fennec, she's definitely, we've seen her in the trailer. So
yeah. So I mean, like, that's the thing, right? Like, we know that there are other ties coming from the movies to the show. Right. So it's like,
it's
and a video game, right? Like, I mean, it would be cool to I might be reaching for the stars here, but like, it would be kind of cool to see like Cal Kestis, like,
dude, I'd love that. That'd be great.
That'd be pretty badass. So
I think that Cal is a terrific character.
Yeah.
Obviously we know, because he's the protagonist for the Fallen Order game, that he survived Order 66, so he's out there, he's doing stuff. That would be pretty rad. I'd be for it. But I don't know, man. I'm just jazzed about the whole thing. But speaking of reaching for the stars, I watched a video yesterday after this episode came out, and I wanted to ask your opinion on it because I thought it was very, very interesting. So once we get to the end of this episode, it's pretty obvious that the Kaminoans are they're reaching the point of desperation to keep their
Yes.
contract with the Empire, right?
Yes.
And they kind of have a weird little conversation when they're walking down that overly bright hallway
Yeah.
where they're talking about like the next phase of cloning.
Yeah.
And they look down on the troopers. And I saw a thing where people were basically saying that the blueprint from Jango Fett is basically not as strong as it once was, and maybe some of these clones are coming out a little bit weaker.
Right.
And their next step is doing force sensitive clones. Makes me wonder two things. One, is Omega force sensitive, and is that why they had her so close to their sides at the beginning of this?
Yep.
Or two, this is the reaching for the stars part. Somebody brought up Starkiller from the Force Unleashed games, and they were like, is this like a sneaky way that they could maybe introduce Starkiller into canon? And I was like, don't give me hope. Don't do that.
Dude, bringing in Starkiller, God, I mean,
that'd be wild, wouldn't it?
that would be, I hate to say, like, I wouldn't say like steal like part of the show, but I mean, you're talking about like reigniting some passionate fans out there who love the game, especially, you know, Sam Witwer, you know, voice acting him. I mean,
yeah, it's not like he's unfamiliar to
Star
Wars
Wars
animation.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it would be awesome. I think, you know, if Disney were smart or smarter, they would do something like this. But yeah, I think I initially think that, and I think I mentioned on the first episode, like there's something special about Omega, and we don't know it yet. And again, what's the reasoning behind calling her Omega? You know,
yeah.
Is she the last clone? But is she also the start of something new? Right. Like, is she the first of her kind to be force sensitive, or something along those lines, like to have more intelligence than, you know, anyone else? But it's sort of like growing up like Boba did,
right?
He's not so like soldiery. So it's going to be interesting to see. I hate to quote Palpatine, but you know, we're looking into, you know,
watch her career with great interest.
Exactly, with great interest. So it's like, you know, we only got 16 episodes to watch what her story, you know, develops. But you know, that could be a possibility if she just does something where like she just like stops an object or something. I'm like, oh well, there we go.
I don't know, like, because her picking up the blaster right away, her being able to kind of track as easily as Hunter.
Yeah.
Some other people thought that she might be a clone that's made with all of the defects from the entire Bad Batch. Because she's got Crosshair's aiming skill. She's now shown that she's got Hunter's tracking ability. Who knows if she's got text intelligence or whatever. But there's some interesting stuff. Somebody posted an image. I think I saw it on Reddit or something. From, I think it's Force Unleashed 2, where Vader has the just tubes and tubes of clones of Starkiller.
Yes.
And I was just like, ah, shit, if they do that, I might lose my mind. I don't know how they'd write it so that it wouldn't be a thing by the time like Rogue One or Episode 4 hits, but that's not my job. I'll let the creatives figure that out. But
yeah, and the interesting thing would be how you would tie in having or being able to contribute force sensitive abilities to a clone,
right? Because it always goes wrong in the video games, right? Like it's never a good process, which also could tie into Mandalorian.
Mandalorian, yep.
You saw those tubes with what looked like an early version of Snoke, which obviously, when you lead into the sequel trilogy, they said that Palpatine was a clone in that movie. So could this all be Filoni just threading all the things together and making it great? He's the gap filler, man. He made the prequels better. I would trust in the fact that he can make the sequels better too, by ancillary material.
Yeah, I think if there's any hope to take what we're watching in the Bad Batch here and I'd say making not just anything that's happened prequel wise, because I think he's already done that, but to continue on and I'm not even going to say from the original trilogy, because that really doesn't need to be touched, in my opinion. But up to Rogue One, but especially beyond that, right? Like, he's obviously involved in the Mandalorian, so things that are happening post trilogy or post OG trilogy, especially with having Ahsoka, right, and her own show, like that's going to be taking place, post
Fennec.
Right, with Fennec too. So I mean, he's already started to tie things together, and again, I think if there's any hope to make the sequel trilogy any better, it's Filoni. I think he's probably going to be the only person that can successfully do it for people on both sides of the fence to acknowledge it and to care about it even a little bit more. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, because I look back to Clone Wars and I think, there was a large group of people that enjoyed the prequels.
Yeah.
There were a large group of people that didn't enjoy the prequels. However, both of those groups have basically been in agreement that the Clone Wars series made those movies better. So,
absolutely.
If there's anything, whether it's from this or from The Mandalorian or the spin-off shows that are coming from that, I think we could probably get to an inflection point where both people who like the sequels and didn't like the sequels can come to the same agreement, where whatever they did TV show wise enhanced those stories and made them better. So it's crazy to think we're getting that so far from like a cartoon that takes place right after episode 3.
Yeah, because it's like we're not going to get the rumored 4-hour cuts for the Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. Right?
None of that's ever happening.
We're not going to get that. So the only way to, and I part of me thinks that George might have told Dave like what was left out,
Maybe.
And I think for that sake, Dave could have, and I'm not saying used it, but just keep it in mind for developing the Clone Wars with George, right? So, I think between them there weren't a lot of secrets.
No, I don't think so either.
In some cases, I would almost, it would be great for Dave to be like, so what else did George tell you, Dave? Come on. Come on.
And he's like Captain
What
America
else?
at the end of Endgame. No, I don't think I will.
I don't think I will. Yeah. He'll do one of those like typical smiles he does with his cowboy hat on.
Yeah.
And, it's like, I'm going to shoot you straight, but I'm not.
That was like Good Morning America. It was like, please, Dave, tell us anything about Mandalorian season 3. And he was just like, the Force is strong with this one. And that was all he said. And it's like, damn you.
His typical smile while saying things. It's like, well, the Force is strong with this one. All right, Dave.
And then everybody reads into that. Like, what does it mean? It's like he just used a quote from Star Wars. It probably
Sebastian Stan's coming as Luke Skywalker again.
There's, even though Grogu's gone, there's still going to be Force elements because he said Force. It has to happen.
Right.
Oh, man. Good stuff. Well, you know what? We've gone very long on this episode, much longer than I thought we would, but that's cool because it means that this show is bringing up themes and things that could tie into the greater Star Wars canon, which makes it very worth watching and not just a spin-off cartoon. So let's wrap this up. Out of 10, what are you giving this one?
I'd give it a solid 8 probably. Okay. I don't think it was bad. Like I said, I think it did enough for me to keep interest throughout the episode and to actually think about things. And I think if there's anything in a show that makes you think, not just about what you just watched or what's about to come in the season, then it's a good episode.
Yeah, agreed. I probably give it a 7 3/4. Story development. That's the reason why it gets that. There's not a lot of ultra character development like there was in the last episode, but they push the story forward and they're laying the groundwork for the next 12 or 13 episodes, which I really enjoyed. And the more serialized storytelling, I appreciated the fact that it didn't just become its own standalone story, and it did connect to the first 2 episodes. Keeps it up there, but I would like to see for there to be some room to grow for some better episodes with some higher scores as we get closer to the end of the season. So Yeah, so that's going to do it for this video. Guys, any of these weird theories that we spun out during this episode, if you have any thoughts on them, we would love to hear from you. Drop us a comment below and let us know what you thought. Go ahead and like the video. If you're new to the channel, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so that way you don't miss any future videos from us. We'll have another Mythic Quest video later this week, and then hopefully some movie reviews coming. There are some new releases that have come out that we want to cover, and hopefully we'll get those to you soon. So till next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.
Peace.